what if the greatest revolution doesn't begin out there, but right inside your home, inside yourself? In today's conversation, I am joined once again by Martine Shelley, a mother, a healer, a guide for women who are ready to reconnect with their inner wisdom and end the cycles that have silently shaped their families, our homes for generations. Together, we explore the heart of generational healing, really heavily focused on the mother line, and how this is not really just a personal journey, but as a collective awakening. Martine really shares why reclaiming our matriarchal power is not about going back in time, but about restoring balance within ourselves, in our homes, and in our relationships with the men that we love. If you've ever felt the weight of patterns that don't belong to you, if you've questioned what it truly means to bring peace into your home, or if you're ready to stop carrying what your lineage couldn't heal, this episode is your invitation to return to the wisdom that is already living inside of you. So let's dive in. When you go beyond the surface and into the depths of who you truly are, you will rise. Martine, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to dive even further with you today. And I know it's going to be such an incredible conversation that we're going to have. So thank you first and foremost for coming back. You're such an incredible human being that I'm so honored that I've had the opportunity to connect with you. So first, thank you so much.
Honestly, it's my pleasure. I just was so excited to reconnect with you because we had an amazing conversation last time, and I'm excited to go deeper.
So where I'd love to start is maybe perhaps I feel like this could set the stage for us is if you can kind of share a moment for yourself and in your own journey when choosing to heal really kind of changed the trajectory of, your life and in your journey, whether it be like in motherhood, but you also that then started to see that ripple effect, not just within yourself, but maybe within your children, within your lineage.
Yeah, I guess there's been two major moments in life where so the first moment where I became aware of generational trauma was when I was about 6 years old. That was the first major change that it had for me. Because when I was 6, I learned that my matriarchal grandmother had passed away when my mother was 6 months old. So my mother lost her mother when she was a baby. And even though I had no knowledge of her life or experience or her journey, with it intuitively within me, I knew that that was really important. And I could see, and I started to see the places where that was having an impact. And it's almost like I could see that there being a break in her not having her mother meant something. I knew it was important. So that's what really got me going onto this generational healing journey that I've been on through life, of beginning to piece it all together. I guess the second profound moment was when I was holding my 4-day-old son, and I looked down at him, and I could sense within me my intuitions were missing, everything was gone. And so that was another sort of really big moment that sort of really took me off onto a 16-year dive into generational healing and repairing those inner parts, regathering the knowledge, the wisdom, the information that I needed to help me step into motherhood fully, and to help me to have the bits that I was missing. But I guess the biggest moment, the biggest transformation came when, I think it was probably about 10 odd years ago now, I was stood in my hallway and I was looking around at my family home, and I felt like a total failure as a mother. I looked around at my home and I was like, our home is in chaos. The connections are missing. There's just unhappiness and unkindness and crosswords and sadness. It wasn't what I expected a mother's life to feel like and to look like. And I felt utterly broken. I felt like a total failure. How was I raising children in what felt like such a dysfunctional family home? And I was just, I just need someone to come in and fix my family home. of course, nobody comes in to fix our family homes. And as mothers, when you're struggling, when you're suffering, when you don't feel like you're a very good mum, when you feel like you're cross all the time, when you feel like you speak to your children in a way that you know you shouldn't, but you can't do anything different, when you feel like you're too rough with them or you're too in their face, where can you go to speak openly about these things without repercussions or something coming back from that? It's really quite a frightening, hard place to be in when you're a mother and you just don't know how to change what you're doing. But that was the biggest moment for me, when I just went, no one's coming. No one's going to come into my family home and fix this. I have to do this myself. I have to work this out. And so I did.
Wow.
And the starting process of that was, so by this time, my eldest son was 7, my middle child was 5, and new boy, and then we had a 2-year-old. And my eldest child's mental health was in a completely, he was a mental health wreck. He was struggling in school, he was struggling with home, and we just didn't know what to do to help him. My middle son, red raw it was called erythrodermic, red raw skin covering his whole body. He had skin failure from the stress, from the autoimmune conditions it caused, from the fact that we couldn't get him to eat healthy food. All of these things had such a repercussion on his whole nervous system, living in a home with chaos, living with such dysfunction. And I just felt completely like a failure. So that's the position we were in.
Wow.
When crunch point happened. And I know many families who, whilst they might not have the same external things happening to them, I know that they are having the same things going on within them, the same feelings happening within them, the same thoughts going through their mind. And so the biggest turning point came when I was just like, right, I have to fix this. I have to be the one who brings healing to this. And so I went back to basics with them, and I recreated the 4th trimester.
Wow.
So the 4th trimester is that 4-month period following a child being born, where they still don't know that they're a separate being from their mother. Their energy was formed within us. And when they're born, their energy feels safe when they're within our energy. So when you go back to that 4th trimester period and you bring healing through that period, that's where you really begin to rewire the brain. That's where you really begin to bring deep healing to the root of things. So I set up in my children's bedroom and I slept in there. And so how did that pan out? So for the first 4 nights of me being in my children's bedroom, my eldest son, who was the one who I was trying to work with at this time, because his mental health was really bad.
Yeah.
He was really suffering. He was really struggling. I slept on the floor. His bed was a high bed, and he would just all night just continuously look down over at me, checking I was there. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here.
Mm.
After 4 days, after 4 nights, he then came down and joined me in the bed that I'd made, still sleeping separate from each other, but he came down and slept next to me. After 2 weeks, this is how long the repair took. After 2 weeks, he then felt safe enough within his body, not in his home environment, but within his body, he felt safe enough to lie in touch with me. And then we got back to the mother baby connection. And that's where the healing, the core work.
Wow. It's so massive. It's so
Mm-hmm.
massive. And I think, at least for me, I'm in a position where I become so grateful to have these conversations, because in a way I feel like I'm very consciously like in this preparation of motherhood. It's like, in a way, it's just like having the conversations that I never expected to have, or people never really have these conversations to prepare you for this, to know that, there is this going to be this period, I guess, in a way, like setting the stage of just, there is like the understanding, I think, around how reliant the baby is, how connected they are to us. And it allows us to come into it with, I think, a different perspective, because it's easy to say, it's easy to, I think, get overwhelmed by it and say, well, I think one of the conversations my husband and I have, it's like around the patients, they're going to be very reliant on you. And it's like, yes. And I understand why. And I think when you understand why, you can enter it with a whole different level of feeling, maybe, is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and you're right, because you're understanding it. You've yet to step into the experience, but this is why I'm so passionate about healing our mother lines and healing our generational trauma, because we should have our aunties, our grandmas, our mothers, and our sisters, our sisterhood around us. Now, if we were to all have that, as we should, in that fourth trimester period, our worlds would be unburdened. So that all we focus on is our newborn. You don't need to go very far into nature to find the mammals out there that birth and then stay with their newborns hidden for a few
Yeah.
months following their birth. They do that for a reason, because that's what the baby needs. What they need during that phase, during that part of their development. Their world needs to be safe. It needs to be contained. And that's what recreating that environment in my children's home did. It allowed for them to go back to a place of safety because our house was chaos. So, do you know what? Let's close it down and come into a small circle. And so we recreated that place of safety for them so that they could step into that place where that part of the brain can then heal and that those connections can be reformed. Whilst, like I say, I mean, yes, our house was chaos, but our children were always safe in their home,
Yeah.
but they didn't feel safe.
And that's
And
what
that's the
matters.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That feeling of safety. So I love the fact that we're now in a place where we have crones and mothers and maidens like yourself who are crossing this wisdom and knowledge over because we don't have this coming down through our family lines anymore. It's missing. And who's telling us this? Who's speaking to you and saying, yeah, there's going to be times when you're going to have feelings and emotions coming out of you that you've never expressed before. And it's going to shock you. It's going to surprise you. And it
Yeah.
is.
100%. I was going to ask you earlier, do you find, was there, how am I asking this? Do you find that there was kind of like this crossover between as you described, the chaos that you were experiencing in your home with that very first experience of at the age of 6, where you experienced that first moment of like the generational trauma from your mom losing her mom? Do you feel like there was a connection at all in any of it?
The first time I felt a connection was when I went through when I went back through the reconnection, when I went back through the fourth trimester with my eldest son. Well, I was saying that my third son, because I have 3 boys, by my third son, you've just grown so much. You've so much healing of finding safety in the birth process. And this is another part of my work that I bring into it, is because the birthing process has been removed from our family homes. We're not seeing birth. We're not safe with birth. We don't feel comfortable with birth. We don't know what normal is. So we're fearful of it when we step into it. And quite often it takes mothers a few times of giving birth to find that safety, unless they've had people around them who have helped them find that themselves. But it takes quite a while and quite often mothers will get to their second birth and just go, I'm not doing that again. That removed all of my autonomy. None of that happened how I wanted. I didn't want this. I didn't want that. I didn't want my baby taken away. I didn't want them to do a sweep. I didn't want them to induce me. But because you get stuck in that system, these things happen. So by my third child, actually, he was born at home and actually arrived before the midwife. So he was born with myself and my partner at home and my best friend. So it was just the most amazing experience to fully have the autonomy and trust in myself and my body that I can birth without a medical team around me, because that's what our bodies are designed for. That's mammals do this all around the globe. So actually by my third son, there was a lot of things I'd learned. There's a lot of things I'd gone through. So with him and I, we have a very different connection than I have with my other 2 children. And this is something that, again, it sits within the heart of us, but often mothers don't say. We have different connections with our children. And our first child is the one we learn through.
Yeah.
The first child is the one that gets the rawest, roughest version of us.
Mm.
So the most healing needs to happen, not always, but with the first child is the one where a lot of the wounds fall. And so we've had to do a lot of healing with our eldest son. But he's 15 now, and he's just I think sometimes he's more emotionally mature than I am at times. He just is so amazing. He is the go-to for his friends who come to him and ask for help. And he's just got this such a soulfulness to him and such an understanding of the bigger picture in life. So I guess that by my third child, that was the time where things felt different for me as a mother. That's when it felt more intuitive. That's when it felt more innate.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of learning to do before I got there.
Mm. I truly am grateful for just how raw and true that is, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe it in that way. And it's not to say that like this is how it's going to be, but it's also maybe even the sense of just like, I guess like a deeper understanding to all of it, that yes, like we were doing this for the first time, and to give ourselves that grace and that compassion to know that yes, we're learning this for the first time, we're doing it for the first time, regardless of having your parents around. You yourself are experiencing it for the first time, and you're stepping into that role for the first time too. And it requires us to have a little bit more like grace for ourselves, and just creating that space, and having that community. I know you talked about it, but having that like the sisterhood, the having that community of women who have maybe walked this path, and even haven't walked that path. It doesn't even matter. It's just having the community of women surrounding you is I feel like what's been like missed,
Yeah,
and
hugely.
I think about that so much when it comes to my journey. And I'm not even at a point where it's wild, because I feel like I'm not even pregnant yet, and but I know I'm like walking this path, and it's like I think about myself and what's that going to look like for me, and who do I want in my corner, and how do I want that space to look like. And truly it's because I've had the opportunity to learn through so many of my own like bloodline sisters, but also soul sisters who have walked this path, and I get to learn through all of your experiences of what's worked, wish you could have done differently, where you could have you know maybe stood your ground, or like really spoke up for yourself in that like birthing process, and in that space.
Yeah, I think so. And I think because once you step into, if, and again, it comes back to the fact that if you'd seen birth within your family home, if you've watched a birth, if that's something that's normal to your body, to your mind, to your soul, when you step into it for the first time, there's not an inner fear. When there's an inner fear, so I was having this conversation with somebody today, and we were saying, and what I said was, labor cannot progress when we're in our survival system, because everything about birth is about feeling safe. Mammals go off in the night and they'll give birth. They'll go and find a hedge. They'll go and find quiet. They go find peace. They dig a hole. They have a den. So animals in the wild, they go off and they find this safety. But yet when we go into labor, we're told, right, once you got to a certain point, then you come into hospital, then you do this. So the whole time while you're in labor, you're like, oh, I've got to count my contractions. Oh, I've got to... The labor process should not have anything external attached to it. That's how we go through labor, through its purest form. And yes, it's an idyllic, but if we start there, rather than starting with medicalized labor, if we start with natural, and then we need to get there if we get there. But when you go into it and you have that knowing within you that whilst you might have not experienced it, you've seen it, you've heard it, you've been around it, then your body's not going to go into fear. Once you go to hospital, you change location and you have change of people around you, and you have bright lights in your face and a change of staff and people asking you questions. What that does is it takes you out of your meditative space that we go into when we go into labor. When we're in labor, there shouldn't be questions asked of us. This is why it's important to have people around who are knowledgeable, people who can use their intuition to see what's going on, who don't need to do a vaginal check to make sure that you're progressing, because they can see, because they know, because it's within them. This is why our communities used to have birth keepers. This is why we have doulas. So for me, just the fact that birthing has been removed from our family homes has had such a big impact on how many women now are going into birth with fear, and how many of those women who go into birth feeling fear, who then end up having to have medical interventions and C-sections.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful too. And I think in what comes through is just simply like just this taking back of like ownership, and like the empowerment that comes with that, instead of feeling like we're giving up all of our power. And I'm curious too, like what for you healing the mother line, what has that unlock in us as women, as we go through this path of unlocking the or healing our mother line? What does that unlock within us as mothers, as
Mm-hmm.
creators, as lovers, as leaders in our world? What has that been?
So the Motherline is one of my favourite parts of my programme that I run, and that's when we really delve into the Motherline. And so the Motherline for me is you have the child, you have the maiden, you have the mother, you have the crone, and then you have the spirit mother as well. All of us, if we're lucky, will go through all phases of those, or if we choose to, we'll go through all phases of those. Now, here's the thing. We do not need to birth to be a mother. We can be a mother innately within us. That can just be alive within us, whether we've birthed or not. Not all women are mothers. Not all women have that archetype within them. Not all mothers are designed to birth, but we can all step into motherhood. So for me, when we look at the motherline, let's look at your childhood. Did you go through your childhood being a child, or were you expected to be older? Were you expected to be the older sibling, the one who was managing the younger siblings? When you were a maiden, did you get to fully be free and carefree and have fun and get out there and explore and live your life and do that? Or were you still having to take responsibility elsewhere? When you stepped into motherhood, did you get to fully go through motherhood, or was it dysfunctional? Did you not fully go through that whole process? Did you have children removed from you? Did you have losses? How did that process go through you? The same for your crone phase as well. How did your journey through life go through each of those each of those stages of our motherline? And also, what does your own motherline look like? When you were a child, where were the maidens? Where were the mothers? Where were the crones? Where were the aunties? So that motherline is the thread, because as women, we are the portal. We are the portal for birth.
Yeah.
So the wisdom and the knowledge comes down through our motherline, because the information that comes down into our children when they're born in that fourth trimester comes down that motherline. So that's where the sacred knowledge is missing. That's where that passing on of the thread, that's the important part. Now, when we're children, we get to be children. When we're maidens, we get to have that more fully, you're in your maiden phase. And it's just such a joyous phase where you just feel so yourself and alive and free. And then you step into motherhood and it changes completely. But this is the phase where you're gathering and learning and getting all the information, which you're doing now, which is amazing. But you're gathering and you're learning and you're watching and you're following your children. You're using your intuition to make sure everything is right. All the pieces of the puzzle of your family are there and together. And then you step into crone. We go through our perimenopause phase where we have to unravel all of those wounds. We have to unravel all of the stuff so that we can find our peace, find our alchemy, find our vision, find our sense, so that we can step in fully into that crone to be the one that is the matriarchy of the family, to be the one that sees the whole vision of every single member in the family, so that we can bring the guidance where needed, so that we can gently steer things around, so that we can gently weave and work our magic as we do as women, by just helping and sporting and tweaking and twerking things here and there to help with the growth and healthy development of the rest of the family. So the motherline is everything.
Yeah. It is. And it, you know what I think right now into this moment, as it's like also the continuation of, if you having children and then your children having children and becoming the grandmother, it's like how it continues on.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I think about that in the sense that I have always had such a deep relation with my maternal grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And she passed 10 years ago. And it's like there still is this deep
She's there
bond. Oh my goodness, is she
because she
so
runs through you.
yeah.
And this is why it's so important that when we get to that crone phase, when we get to matriarchy, when we get to being a grandma, that we have moved through those stages in a healthy way, so that we have clear vision of all the stages and phases. We know what should be going on when a child is a child. They shouldn't be caring for their parent. They shouldn't be dealing with anything else other than being a child. So this, the importance of healing families from that top down is incredible. And you made me think of something then that I was going to say. It's gone from my mind.
Well, you know what I think about too is just how in doing this work, and it's a lot about, you know, there's this trend that like went around recently where mothers were sitting down with their children, and I talked about this in a previous episode as well, because I was so fascinated by it, and it made me so emotional to see that, because it's a testament to the work that this generation is going through, or the work that we're doing, in the sense that they would have their children finish these kind of like toxic phrases, right? Have you seen this?
I've seen it. I've seen it. Oh.
It's
Oh,
powerful.
yeah, but I know all the toxic ends to those. It is, but I know all the toxic ends to
Yes,
those.
yes. And I will say too, like I know them not necessarily from the lens that I heard them, but I know them. I'm not
Okay.
I know them. And what's so interesting is it's also becomes down to that choice for us as women, as parents, to not repeat that, to
Hmm.
teach differently. That is such a big role and choice that we also have to make very consciously to not allow those things slip out of our
And
mouth
those
too.
things are they're a perfect example of generational trauma. Perfect. I know when I watched those videos, I was just like, how wonderful that those children don't even have those thoughts in their head.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's generational healing. And when you see that happening, it's just like, yes.
Yeah. I think that's why I loved it so much, because it was a huge testament to like the generational healing, and also to like celebrate. Like I think as well at the same time, part of me like wanted to go through every single one of those videos and comment to the mother, and say, this is a test, like celebrating you, because
Yeah.
it is that
You.
testament. It's that testament to the work that we do, the choice that we make. And it's not always easy to do this work. It can be uncomfortable, and it can be confronting, and it's all the things. And yet then there's this living, breathing proof. And in this moment of just why it's all so
Hmm.
worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're raising children consciously now.
Hmm.
We're raising them to be connected to themselves. We're raising them to have autonomy, to speak their mind, to speak their voice. So if I flick back into old patterns, they call me.
Yeah. Ooh, and having that relationship too with your children I think that changes the dynamic as well. And it's
Hmm.
such a beautiful thing. One of my dear friends, I I get so, I don't know, there's just like this beautiful experience to witness her and her son and the things that she shares that come from her son's mouth. And you're just like, this child, where does this come from? And then at the same time, it's beautiful because as parents, they cultivate that space. And so I'm so amazed at when we can notice and see the dynamic that we are creating. And I think not to forget to celebrate ourselves as the parents,
Yeah.
because we're supporting that. We are creating that space for that. We are allowing them to feel safe, to be that expression of who they are. And it's such a magical
Yeah.
thing to witness. And I just only hope
It
that
is
I'm
so
like, I
beautiful.
want to create that space when I have children.
You will do. I mean, crikey, my goodness me. The sisterhood of women that you have built around yourself, you'll be able to call on all of us when you're just like, help. We'll be like, it's normal, it's fine. Just go lie down and feed them, it's fine. But yeah, there was something actually, there it is. It's come to mind again. And I guess it is relevant because, like you say, we're raising children to be conscious now. So and you were saying about how when you have that mother line, it just passes down and passes down and passes down. Well, when I was a child at school, I always knew I'd have children one day, but I wasn't someone who pretended to be a mum. I wouldn't pretend to have dolls or anything like that.
Me
I
too.
just knew one day I would be a mum. But I also said I know I will be a mother of sons. And I am. I'm a mother of three sons. And even though I didn't know why, it was because I needed to have a break in the mother line within my line going through. I needed to heal with sons and not a daughter.
Mm.
So that when I step into crone phase and step into a grandma, when my sons have a daughter, I will then bring true healing to that mother daughter line in my family.
So beautiful.
Yeah, and it's something I've felt in my heart since I was young, and it makes me emotional talking about it. I know it is. I don't need external validation. I've never needed external validation for the fact that I knew I would always have sons, and I knew I would have sons because I knew I could not mother a daughter because I didn't have the skill set for a mother-daughter relationship.
That's a
Mm.
lot. And also just, but
Mm.
but I see it in the way that you explain it, of just there's the intention and the purpose behind it, and finding that
Mhm.
in all of
Yeah,
that is so
yeah.
beautiful. And I kind of want to shift. I had some like thoughts, and I'd love to shift as well, because I think this is really important to talk about. What does that look like in us reclaiming this matriarchal wisdom? In like, what does that look like in this modern world that's so deeply shaped by patriarchal values? And I know there's a shift happening. There is. but we can't deny that there still is a very heavy stronghold of the patriarchal values of,
For me,
yeah.
they're separate places altogether. They sit in totally separate places. Even our men, their patriarchal world is when they go out to work.
Yeah.
Where's the patriarchy in our homes? It's all about finance. So the men have lost their patriarchy within our family homes. And women are now going out to work and they're not at home either. So where is the clear vision? Where is the clairvoyance? Where is the alchemy? Where is the sense of someone looking at our family homes? If everybody is outside looking away, stuck in our patriarchy. So where does the healing come? The healing comes when, as a mother, you make a choice. You make a choice that you're going to bring healing into your home. And if we're raising sons who are emotionally mature, who are connected, who are conscious, when they grow, they will step into that patriarchy and bring healing. Also, when we heal our relationships, I went on a deep dive with my partner. We went on a really deep healing journey together, right to the root of things. He is that male in work who the younger men go to, who are stepping into fatherhood, who are speaking their concerns and worries. He is bringing them the knowledge, the guidance, the wisdom from the patriarchy into a very male environment. They work in a yard where they cut granite and stone and, big burly men, but they're having conversations about, oh my God, I was holding my baby and I just felt this rage coming up in me. And he was like, it's okay. And talked him through it and spoke him through it. And so this is how we heal the patriarchy. When we heal ourselves as women, when we heal within our family homes, it's just a ripple effect. We can't go into the patriarchy and touch it. We have to look the other way. We have to start healing in our homes, in our adult family homes, so that the next generation, when they step into the patriarchal world, is stepping into it from a different perspective, and they will not tolerate it. They won't.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. My brain is just like completely shifted. I'm like, wow. There's so much. What comes to mind is just how is the word safety for like that keeps coming through. Is just when we do this work for ourselves and we do this healing, we cultivate that safety within our home, within our relationships for our male counterparts to feel safe to do the exact same thing. And I love witnessing that
Yes.
even in my
Yes.
own relationship and just noticing when I as a woman soften and what that does. And I think that's the importance of the curiosity, or just even just the curiosity of just paying attention and noticing when that happens
Mm.
is really important too as women, because it's then we see the evidence. We see the evidence of what it's like when we step into our power as women, when we reclaim that wisdom. How does that create this ripple effect? But if we're not paying attention and we're not seeing, we're missing all of it. We're missing all the
Exactly.
evidence.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of that seeing is understanding that there is a process of growth and development with our children and what our role is in that. And that they have a phase where they are totally attached to mother. And then they have a phase where they go in between, but they come back to mother for emotional support. It's not until they reach 7, 8, 9, 10 that especially boys will make that switch over to their dad. But if they can't make that switch over to their father because they don't feel safe around the father because he's maybe at work a lot, or they've not built that connection, or the father is maybe a bit cross or a bit strict or a bit this or not connected, it has such a deep impact on our children's development that they don't move on to that next stage of their development of having safety and stepping into that man's world of getting that guidance from the patriarchy and the family. This was one of the key points as well within our own healing journey. So like I said, there's a lot of cross words, a lot of upset. My partner would be the first to admit that he would get very cross. Now the difference between me getting cross and my partner getting cross is huge. And the difference of the impact on that in a child, massive. It We would have a situation where I would be in the room and I'd gone through, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold space for their emotions. I'm going to use my body's calming, use my body's nervous system to regulate their nervous system, to have that, oh gosh, that connection from nervous system to nervous system.
Yeah.
All of the plants in the wild, they all connect through the mycelium. They all connect and they communicate through mycelium. If that mycelium is broken, they can't talk. And we're the same. We have our white mycelium nervous system running through us. And if we're isolated on our own, we can't talk. When we do this, when we touch, our nervous systems start communicating, and that's where safety starts to build, and that's where safety starts to form. We know this. We know how we feel when we have a hug from our partner and we just feel safe from them. So when in our home, when things were, and I made these kind of decisions that this is what I was going to do, this is what we're going to do to bring change. One of the things I had to do was put a block in between my partner and the children for his anger. And when I was still living in fear myself of anger, and still living in my own generational wounds of not being able to speak up and shy away. And I think there was one day I was in the room with the children and I was working with my son, and he was emotional, and I was just letting him have his emotions. And my partner would come in and he'd bring the same approach of getting cross and trying to tell him to stop, don't be angry, don't. And I just had to find the strength within myself to turn around and say, no, you cannot handle their emotions, so you have to leave. He has allowed his emotions. I am going to hold space for his emotions. And if you can't do that, you have to leave. And he left. And all of us, including my children, felt that shift. And then we moved through the process where there was no shouting, no crosswords, and we came back to regulation, we came back to connection, and we came back to safety. My partner then witnessed for the first time in our home something being resolved without anger, without crosswords, without that. And that was the moment for him where he felt and he saw something different that made him go, it made him see himself. And that was quite a big moment for him. And so it was huge. And then from then he was able to start learning from me, watching me, and start practicing it himself. I couldn't tell him this information because you can't tell a man most things.
Yeah.
He had to witness it. He had to experience what I was talking about. I couldn't tell him.
Yeah.
And then over time, he's in the same place I am now. We just all have such an amazing relationship with the children. They are fully safe with him. They've fully moved over into wanting to be with their father now. They've moved on from needing that close and maternal nurturing to now being with their father and stepping into that more man's world. But then they come back to me
Yeah.
when they need something more on the emotional side, or where they need the nurturing, or where they need the care or the love or things like that. So they now have balance. And this is what healing the matriarchy is about. It's bringing balance back into our worlds and back into our family homes. Because when we do it, the men will fall in line too, because they will see it, feel it, sense it, and know it.
Yeah. And that is like just like, again, the power of us as women, and that we have forgotten. We have forgotten. It's
Yes.
makes me very grateful for someone like you and for a lot of women that I know that are creating these spaces for women to reclaim, to remember, because that is where so much shifts for us. You know, when we want the changes in our homes and in our relationships, and it really does start with like us and ourselves. And as women, it's taking back and remembering who we are, who we have always been. And I love that you talk about too, because what we're even talking about right now is not just about being mothers. It's just as women, as feminine beings, taking back this is so crucial to society.
Yes, my goodness me, because it ripples out. It just ripples out from us when you go out in public. I mean, the amount, honestly, my partner, he says, honestly, Martine, he said, I cannot believe the amount of times you've just been having a conversation with a guy, and then the next minute he's in tears because he's moved through something. And he said, I just can't, it's crazy how you can just like ripple this work out. And just by someone saying something, I then bring my vision in, I can see what they're talking about. And it's such beautiful work to see someone who may be in their survival system, maybe feeling fear, maybe feeling, to catch them and to just bring them back down just by grounding, just by being a safe place. And if you can be a safe place, people feel it from you. You know, like we were saying, that feeling, we're all safe, but whether we feel safe is different. And when people feel safe, it just radiates.
Yeah. I know I kind of asked
Safety
you
is
this
definitely
earlier about like what does healing unlock in us, and it's exactly that. You know, it's
yeah.
becoming that safe place for men and women. You know, it's exactly that. That is when you start to see the ripple effect and the impact of the healing that you do in your home and in your relationships. And Yeah, and I feel like in what I think about too is, in ways I've had really like intense conversations with my father like very recently, and it's interesting as children what we make it mean when our parents can't emotionally be there with us, and how even, I'm turning 32 this year, and it's like there still is that. For me, most recently was being able to free myself from the narrative of, something's wrong with me, and yet at this, it has nothing to do with me, and I carried that for so long, that there's something wrong with me, that we can't have this relationship. It makes me sad for the patriarchal, like the men, and it makes me sad when emotionally they don't feel safe. And that's what I realized too, is at the same time, and I remember also calling out, like his sister was also there, so my aunt was there, and I said, if he doesn't feel safe to be his truest self around us, that's on us for not making him feel safe. And yeah, it's just, it makes me sad when, the men in our lives and in our world like don't feel that safety to let their walls down.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you only have to go back a generation to see why so many men don't feel safe. They were raised in a way where boys don't cry, man up, all this kind of stuff. And of course, we're raising our children differently. And you hear men all the time, it's all right for them to have emotions. They're allowed emotions. But you're right. Safety is at the heart of everything. If you come across a child who's you recognize they don't feel safe, then they need to go back to that safety net of that babe in arms, of that fourth trimester, to heal that. When we go through trauma, that's what we need. We need to be held. When we don't have emotional support as children, that's a trauma. So at what point in life have you been held? At what point has someone pulled you in and made you feel safe in the same way that a mother did, in the same way that your family home perhaps did or didn't? And it's safety really is at the key of everything. If you have a child who's feeling anxious, a child who's not wanting to go to school, they don't feel safe.
Yeah. I
They don't. It's the bottom line of it.
yeah. And you know what too, even as adults, is recognizing when
Mm-hmm.
we're also in that, and when we also need that same thing that our children need. Because I vividly remember, like a couple weeks ago, actually this has happened twice in maybe the last like month, where just standing in the kitchen and my husband just like hugged me, and I just like let myself go, and it was exactly what I
Mm-hmm.
needed. And it's so healing to have that, and to be able to simply just regulate myself in that,
Mm.
or allow him to help me regulate. That's really what it was. And it's like, yes, we do that for our children, but
Yes, you just touched on a huge part there, a huge part, because this is what we need to bring back in, is innateness into our regulation. We have had to learn how to regulate our nervous systems. What we should not be doing is teaching children how to regulate their nervous systems on their own.
oof.
We need to co-regulate with them so that they can grow into self-regulation. Because if all we're doing is teaching them how to regulate themselves on their own, then they're still on their own. Regulation comes through connection. You've just explained it there with the hug from your partner. He regulated you. So why are we teaching children how to regulate their nervous systems when this should be done through connection? If a teacher is seeing a child who's dysregulated, you don't tell them to breathe. You don't tell them to do this. No one can listen when they're in that state. You regulate yourself, you deep breathe, you hold space, you give gentle touch, and you let them move through until they've come back to safety and regulation. And then you hug them, and then the words can be found, and then it can be processed. But I see this wave at the moment of like teaching children nervous system regulation. No, we've had to learn how to regulate our nervous system, but we need to pass it back down so it becomes innate.
And that's the like problem, is that we've been taught to take care of ourselves, of I
Mm-hmm.
have to do it alone, and I can't really count on XYZ. And I think that's, at least for me in my own journey, it feels like that's where a lot has come from, is just I can only count on one person, then that's me, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's where it comes from. And so allowing ourselves to, like, for me, I think in my relationships, or in my relationship, there is such a beautiful teamwork that happens. There is no I'm doing on my own and you're doing on your own. It is so this, it is so connected. It's so
Mm.
together. And I haven't seen that. And like truly haven't seen that in my parents were separated when I was very young. So I never know what it's like I never knew what it was like to see them together. Also, I found myself questioning, well, did they ever even love each other? And it's just
Of course.
it's interesting. So I never got to see that in my parents, but even around me. And so being able to create this, to do this differently, is a really important choice that I've made for myself. And that's where doing this work comes from, when we start to see the ripple effect of choosing this work.
Choice is everything. When we choose to bring healing into our home, when we have autonomy within ourselves, when we have that consciousness to make a choice to say, I'm not going to let my family continue down this line of pain and suffering. When we make that choice, that's when we begin to change everything. Yeah, it's a slow journey, it's a lifelong journey. And just that one simple thing of not having a mother who was able to provide emotional support is such a trauma to us. And it's such a big thing that we have to relearn. Not having a mother who could play with you is a big trauma, because not having play and not having that kind of learning is a huge trauma to us. So quite often children who've not received emotional support, who've not had mothers who play with them, when they step into motherhood, they don't know how to be emotionally available. They don't know how to play because it was never given to them. And if it's not wired into our brain, there's literally no knowledge of it. You know, they're saying we don't know what we don't know. This comes with stuff that's built into us innately as well. If we don't know, we don't know. But it's only when someone shines a light, it's only when someone shows you a shadow, it's only when someone opens another door that we can finally go, oh, that makes sense. And you know, the amount of women who come on my courses who say, I think there's something mentally wrong with me. No, there's not. There's generational wounds. There's gaps in your development. There's nothing mentally wrong with you.
Yeah.
There's just gaps in your experiences. There's gaps in your knowledge. There's gaps in your wisdom. There's not something mentally wrong with you. And all of those things we can bring healing to.
Yeah. I'll wrap this up with kind of like one final question is, why do
Mm-hmm.
you think peace in the home is the most radical thing that we can offer to like the world right now?
My goodness me. The chaos that's going on in the world. If we continue to look outwards from our family homes and continue to think that we can fix the external world, it's going to continue to crumble. We have to turn our sights round and look back home and solely focus on bringing healing to our family homes. That's the only way we can bring healing to the chaos in the world, is by healing our homes, healing the hearts of our homes, and ensuring that one family, one person, one generation at a time, we're doing this work.
I love this. And I love you and I love this conversation. And I think it was truly such a powerful conversation. I know for me, like as I go on this journey and navigate this journey, but I know for so many women, this is such an important conversation for us to have. So I'm so grateful that we got to do this together. So thank you.
Honestly, I just want to as well just take my hat off to you, because not many women do this kind of work before they've stepped into motherhood. Most people around me who I see who are stepping in and bringing and doing this deep work, they've gone through motherhood. They're in their crone. They're trying to heal the past of their own mothering and that journey. So to see you in your glory of your maiden days doing this work and seeking this knowledge and then feeding it out to other maidens, I love it. So celebrating you for just having that conscious choice to do this work before motherhood. And I cannot wait for you to become a mother and support you.
I can't wait to. I think about it. I'm like, I can't wait. Now it's beautiful to also shift that fear. I think that's what I've noticed so much. It's just a couple of years ago, a lot of people know that I was kind of like in this walking this path of, I'm not sure if I want to become a mother. And it was really all rooted in fear. And so to have alchemized all of that into now, like it's excitement, it's this desire, it feels so
Mm-hmm.
different. And it's a testament to doing this work, to looking at the fear and not being afraid of the fear, and looking at where is this all this fear coming from. I'm just so grateful for it. the women that I get to surround myself with, including you, to have these conversations, to share and pass down this knowledge and this wisdom, because that's what it is. It's just passing down this wisdom so that we feel seen and heard in all ways along this journey, whether you are a mother yet or you are in this journey.
Mm-hmm.
You are there. Maybe your kids are even have left the home. We're all at different stages of motherhood, but yeah, it's just really important for
Whatever
us.
stage we're at, yeah, just whatever stage we're at in life, you can start the healing to your motherline from whichever. I mean, I started as a child, and I know that I'll bring true healing to it when I'm a grandma. But the word goes through the generations, and so whatever phase of life you're in, when you step into bringing in this healing work and you start bringing that healing to your motherline, the ripple effect will go down through the generations, and it will be remembered.
It will. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media. And we'll see you in the next episode.